I'm sure there'll be some late stragglers, but I'll go ahead and get started since I know everybody's time is important to them. Welcome to the Aspire Consulting demo of Simplified Analytics for PeopleSoft HCM. My name is Harry Oxrider. I've been working with PeopleSoft for over 25 years and was excited when PeopleSoft released the Simplified Analytics as part of the manager tiles and manager transactions to make it easy for managers to be able to get some real-time information when making decisions. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to give a high-level 50,000 foot view of the analytics, talk about what's delivered in PeopleSoft 9.2 HCM, go through the building blocks. So what are the pieces that make all that work? I'll go into a demo, walking through the delivered pieces. And then the part that I'm always interested in when I attend a demo is not just the flashy part of it, but what's behind the scenes, what makes it work, how is it delivered, how do these pieces fit together? So I'll be covering that and talk about some pivot grids and the related content. Then I'll go through some lessons learned. So there are some quirks to the analytics. There's a couple little things you need to know, and then I'll go through some resources. So there are some other good PeopleSoft resources out there on this topic that I wanted to share. So what's delivered? So these are the analytics that come in the PeopleSoft and Simplified Analytics. They've come configured. They are linked in to tiles. I'll show you how they work with tiles. Several of them are linked into the manager self-service. So managers have the ability to get real-time information as they are making decisions and working on employee transactions. So analytics has been available for over 5 years. If you're going to put it in, I would recommend at least PeopleTools 5.7, depending on where you are. 5.8 has a couple more patches to it, but 5.7 had some of the newer thresholding and other pieces with it. So depending on where you are with your PeopleSoft life cycle, I would say at least be on 8.5.7. The nice thing about using analytics is it's real-time data. So I know people are used to working with query and running queries and getting data real-time. The nice thing about the pivot grids that are associated with it is you can change the facets on them and they will update real-time and give you the information you need to make decisions. Another nice feature is that the end user will have access to some specific templates depending on where they are in the system. So it's contextual, and from that they can make changes to them. If they build one they like, they can publish it, and then they can go back and refer to it again. And the one thing to think about, this is all going to be fluid based. So it's everything in tiles, or it can be integrated into the right-hand pane. So I've mentioned fluid is required. And it's very simple building blocks. Like I said, people are used to working with queries. The pivot grid wizard is where you are specifying how do you want the data to be displayed. So when you think of pivot grids, you think of charts. You think of how you can control what type of chart is being displayed, what's on each axis, and then embedding that as a related content into the fluid page. And then once it's a template on the fluid page, there's an analytics wizard that each end user can use. And if they've built one that they want to share or save, that ability is built in. So it does make it easy for someone to be a administrator over the analytics and then have the end users update their analytics, modify them, and then share them with other users. So I know everybody wants to get in the demo, so let's jump over into PeopleSoft. Oh, wrong one. Too many windows. There we go. So I've logged in. I'm a manager. I've logged into my self-service. And so I'm working on my daily tasks. So normally I would come in and I would be looking at things dealing with my team. So if I go into my team tile, So I'm going to see my list of direct reports. I get some related content. So these are some of the pivot grids that pop up as the related content. I also have some buttons up on the right. So when I talk about fluid and right side for analytics, all that related content piece for the fluid page is always on the right-hand side. Here I have add analytics and I have total headcount. So I already have an analytics that has been built out here. So if there's something that I know that I run quite often and want to look at, I can go directly into my total headcount. And it's going to then open up a window and give me that analytic that I've built off a template and has information about it. So here I'm counting employees by location. So I have a very nice chart and I've got the detail down below so I can see all of that detail. Over on the left-hand side of my analytic, I have some other information. So if I want to be able to rearrange the facets I have up here and I want to know more by location, so if I want to have additional information of my full and part-time population, it's very easy. I can drag this up. I can drop it in the top and it will refresh. And out of that, I'll be able to see my breakout of my full and part-time employees. So over here, I've got my full-time, part-time by corporate. Down below, though, I'm still showing all the information. So if I wanted to know, okay, who were my part-time, I want a little more information, I can click, and I have some actions up here. So if I want to know the details behind this bar, I can click the detail view. So then down at the bottom, it pulls up my list of part-time people. So I can see all my part-time people down here. So it's really nice. It's interactive. I can change the facets of what I'm looking at so I can get the information I need quickly. The other thing is I may need to change this. So I have this one sitting out here and I realize, I need a little more detail. I know I see the employee ID, I see, where they are, but I don't have name on here. It'd be really nice to have name in my details. So again, up at the top, I have an edit button. So I can go into edit. It's going to take me back to the beginning of how this is built. So this is my total head count. When I talk about templates, there are 2 templates out here I can choose from. So this one was built on the current headcount profile by manager. This is telling me I'm going to display both the chart and the table. And these are the 2 I normally pick the most. So I can drill down from the chart and I can get the information in a table. So just like from within your pivot grid, this gives you the chance now to add or remove fields that you want to be able to analyze. So I'm realizing that it'd be really nice to have name because I forgot my name when I built this before. So I can quickly change that and say name. So it'll go back out here and it'll refresh with the newest information and I can see I now have name. So if I want to go back to my full part-time, I can change that facet up on my row information. Again, it'll refresh real time. So now, again, I've got all the employees. If I want to see that detail, I can click on it, see the detail view. And so now I've got a little more information about who the folks are that are part-time. If I like this and I want to save it, I can click save. And then you'll see I have some other buttons at the top here. So I can add this to my homepage. It can be part of the Fluid dashboard. I can put it on the nav bar. I can, if it's going to be a tile, I can say what size tile I want it to be. I can also, and I like this feature too, I can publish this to share with others. So if there are other managers, especially on my team, who I think this would be real helpful for, as opposed to having them have to build it themselves, I can publish it and share it with other users. So I like that feature because it, if you've got someone in the group that is good at building these, it saves someone, the rest of the managers from having to build their own. Okay, so I've saved it. So next time I come in and I'm looking at my team information, I've got it out here, it's built, it's got the name. So now I've got a label on it from where I have it. I have some other options out here. So one of the other nice features is while working on this, and I look at my options, there are some nice things around thresholds. So if you want to be able to add a threshold to a report so it jumps out at you in case you've reached some level. So I know the financials folks in the financial system like to be able to say, if I'm at a certain number, I need to know about that. If I'm over that number or within a range of numbers, I can do that. On the HR side, it's typically things around counting people. So here I'm going to just show you an example of if I wanted to add a threshold so that I was knowing there'd be an issue identified easily if I have more than 50 people in my count. So what I'm doing is adding a distinct threshold of 50. I'm going to make it red, and when I apply this, it gives me a visual mark so that if there are folks over that, I know I need to look at them. I have the ability to easily pick that off of my count and my chart. So it's a nice way to add a bar across or a line across your chart so that if you need to keep track of something, that threshold will help you with that. And there's also some abilities depending on what tools version you're in to, if the threshold is exceeded, to give you an alert and give you an action item in your work list. So here I've got my threshold. I like that. I like what it looks like. So I'm going to save it. So I'm going to save what I've done. Other things that you can do while you're in here is if you need to update the filters or change the chart options, which is also down here, or I want to export the data. So if I want to pull the data from this chart out and use it, if I want to reset the chart based on everything I've played with it and I've got it to a point where I just don't like what it looks like and I want to take it back to the beginning, I can reset it. Again, save as. So if I've used one and I want to turn it into something else and save it, I can do that, or I can add it to my homepage. So these are all kind of the basics of if you have an existing analytic that's out here, you can edit it, change it, move around the different facets on it, drill down to it, and get to the information you need. So I'm going to close this one up. So I talked about, again, analytics being over here on the right side of the pane. If I want to add a new analytic, I do have that ability. So I've got two to choose from. So I know that I have my current one that I have out there and I've saved is the current headcount. I want to use the headcount movement manager template. So I'm going to call this movement. And again, for me, I like both the chart and the simple table. I like to be able to see the details and easily drill down into them. I can go through and pick the fields that I need and that I want to see. I can also specify a from and through date. Now, this from and through date is actually coming from the pivot grid. So the pivot grid that built this has from and through date built into it. So since this is the demo environment, I do know these dates are good to get that month, or I'm sorry, that year out through 2015. So I click next and it's going to build my chart and give me my detailed view at the bottom. So here, again, I've quickly been able to get some real-time information. I can see my hire count, my rehires, my transfer ins. So I can see the different pieces that go with that. And again, if I want to see more information about that, and I just want to see my rehires, I can click on the block. It brought my rehires all down here. So I have all my rehires if I'm looking for more information about the rehires. If I'm looking for the new hires, I can also get that information and drill down to see them specifically. And again, if I was looking for what types of jobs I had or departments where these people were, so let's look at departments so I can see what's going on with my movement with the different departments. So here I've got my category of hire, parental leave, all the way down to transfer out, and I've got the departments that go with it. So I can see here I've got terminations, and it's been for 2 different departments. It was customer service, it was accounts receivable. All my hires have been in revenue management. So again, it gives me the chance to dig through and get the analytics in a format that is helpful for me to make decisions. And then if I need to review these people, again, I always have my related actions that are sitting down here, so I can jump over, and if I need to look at their personal information or make a change to them, that's also available to me. So it's a real great way to be able to quickly get information at your fingertips and then act on it. So I like this. I like how this was built. It gives me by department, which I'm interested in tracking and knowing, where my job movement is. So I'm going to save this one. So now when I come back to my team page, I have my 2 saved analytics sitting out here waiting for me. So these are instantly available to me next time I come in, and if I need to, I can make changes to them and dig through them as needed. So let's talk about another way of using analytics. So the other way I like to see analytics is everyone likes their home pages, and you can put all kinds of great things out on the home pages. You also have the ability to build a workforce analytics homepage. So these are all various tiles that are delivered with the analytics in them. So the diversity overview was just one of the ones I picked. So if I want to build this page, I can create a new homepage. I can add tiles to it. So to add those tiles, I'm going to personalize my page because I want to make some changes. So I'm working on my Workforce Analytics homepage. These are the tiles I have previously added, but there's a couple other that I wish I had out here. So I'm going to add some more tiles. So by adding a tile, I need to go into my analytics, and within the analytics, these are all the tiles that are available to me. So I know I'm interested in my workforce turnover. So I've added that down here. If I want to add others, let's see, how about performance versus compa ratio? And again, it's adding it down here to the bottom. I can rearrange these. Let's save it and see it refresh. So now I have my own little homepage of Workforce Analytics that I can come out to and review. So if there are things that I'm interested in, and again, as a manager, I may come in and once a day go out and spot check some of the analytics just to make sure that nothing is jumping out at me. If there's anything that I need to be tracking, I've got it easily available. And then if I want to dig into it, I can. So if I come in, I'm like, the diversity one looks odd for what I was expecting to see. You can drill into them. So it opens up a new window. It has all that information that it's showing you, and then it has the details down below. So it's, again, interactive, gives you the ability to, if you want to look at more details. So if I want to know by company or location or department, I have that ability to come out here and add these pieces in. So if I'm worried that by company, so I've got company, I've got the different diversity values that go with that. And so if I'm interested in the GBI, and since I hover over it, it's giving me specific information that I can see here. And again, I can drill into it and get a detailed view of those 54 people. Or I'm sorry, those 4 people. I had 54 overall. So I can get the diversity value, and this was around age. So I can drill down and get that information. So again, that's all from the home page where I've added my tiles to have my own workforce analytics. Let's go back up here. So let's go back into diversity. So I'm interested in drilling down into the veteran status, but I'm trying to figure out my reg and temp employees. So I've got job code down here. I don't have everything in here that I might be interested in. So if I come out, I can edit. So this one I don't have reg temp on here. So if I was going to work on this one, I would have to make a change to it to get to my veteran status. I can see over here I have reg temp, but I don't have it in one of the pieces to look at. So let's come over here and look at our veteran status. So from here I can see my full-time. So all of these people are full-time. So if I'm going to dig down into it, I can at least get down to that information to see the reg temp and that they're full-time. So I've got reg temp full-time. So again, it gives me the ability to do some drilling down and then edit those options. So I like having this workforce analytics to have kind of, my hot items available to me so that I can see what I need to be tracking quickly. Okay, so the next big question I normally get is, how does all this work? So, these are all flashy, they look nice, but at the end of the day, what are the pieces that hold all this together? So I had added my performance versus comp ratio out here. So let's talk about the pieces that make this work. So the primary piece that I've mentioned is it's a pivot grid. So let's start with some pivot grids. So I go into my pivot grid wizard. And I know the name of this one is HR TM PG. So this is my specific pivot grid for the performance versus comp ratio. So if you worked with pivot grids before, you know that there's a query that's tied to the pivot grid definition. You've got the fields that you're selecting that are going to be part of it. You've identified which fields are going to be used for the access, what types of things you're going to display. The important piece is on the fourth step here. So under the fourth step, we have fluid mode options. So our fluid mode options, these are the pieces that are going to be used and referred to when we are publishing these to be analytics as related content on the page. So when used as an analytics template, allow created reports to be accessed outside the component context. So again, we're creating a template and then we want people to be able to run this, not just within the component, but to be able to put it on a tile and use it other places. We have viewer options. So again, the columns that are available, how many facets are available, and then for the facet selection, so we can have multiple selections of specific pieces of information within that analytic. The last piece is once you have your pivot grid built, you can see a quick test of it here, but it's this configure related content. So this pivot grid is going to be related content that's available over in that right-hand pane. So again, we've talked about it has to be a fluid page. It's going to show up as related content. It'll be in that right-hand pane. So I'm clicking on the related content, and so I can see all the pieces that I have out here of where it can be used. So this performance versus comp ratio is available on several different pages. So, for example, you may be working on a ad hoc salary change, so it's been added to there, and there is some additional pieces you need to do. So you have to make sure you're configuring it so that it's tying back to what was available to you from the page it's coming from. So this is a self-service page. You're tying it to the employee ID and the user ID that's available on that page. So all those pieces are coming in for the service that will be there. So that's the first part of the setup. The next part is, let's just go straight back to actually managing content. Okay, so the one I talked about was the ad hoc salary. So you can see I have multiple things for ad hoc salary. The one that I'm focused on, though, is going to be this fluid structure. So I can look here and I can see that from page level related content, I have an analytics service, and that analytics service is tied back to my comp ratio report. So if I were to do this again from scratch, and I were to pick my service, I'm just going to replicate what's exactly above it here. So the service that I'm looking for is the analytics service. So I'm using analytics. And once I pick the analytics, I can see it's pointing me toward the direction of a pivot grid. So if I sort them all, this was performance. I can come down here and find my performance versus comp ratio. So here was the one I was working with on my pivot grid. So the one challenging piece is once you link these together, it's not easy to see them. The only thing you're going to see is if you configure it here, you can see the page that it's tied to. It's an analytics service. And then it gives you the mapping that you would need to do with that. So this one is a fixed value for the mapping data for the pivot grid. So that's one of the pieces I find a little painful, is that if you're coming out here and trying to make sure you've got the right pivot grid associated with it, you can't really see it. So you either have to report on it from behind the scenes or go back in and add it and walk through the steps. Okay, I'm going to take off what I did. Okay, so the other nice piece I do like about this is if you're in here working and you want to test and play, you can directly go to that content reference at the top. So at the top of the page, you have the ability to jump directly to the request ad hoc salary change. So again, it looks just like my regular homepage for my team manager, choosing all the embedded security with it. And so if I'm going to do a ad hoc salary change for Diana Palmer, I can look and I can say, wow, this salary, 19,600, is well below the minimum of the range. So I know for Diana, I definitely want to do something to bring this employee up to the minimum. So this is going to be a big number, and the system's probably going to bark at me because it's not going to like a big number. So it's going to say greater than 20. This is correct, leave as is. So I'm going to say okay. So I go to my next. So, okay, it'll take up to 24/6, but you know what? I probably should make a little deeper decision. I should probably look to see how does this compare to the peers in that department. So I can go and create a quick analytic. Within my quick analytic, again, I've given it a name. I've got the pieces that go with it. Those are all the things I'm going to need. It's going to go out and grab all the comp ratio information of the query that we were looking at from our pivot grid. So I can see I'm working on Diana. So here's Diana. So here she is. And I know she's below the minimum. She's below the 80%. I can see the other people up here are a little above. Oh, I got some other people I guess I need to look at. So these people are below the minimum. So I'll have to work on making some adjustments to them. But if I just move her up to the minimum, does it make sense based on her peers? So I can do additional analysis and look at the other people, make some other decisions, and maybe the $5,000 to get her up to the minimum based on where she stands within her peer group and her performance, I might want to, move it up and do something different. So it gives me some analytics that I can make some decisions with. So if I decide that, you know what, I really do want to make a bigger adjustment, I can come back out here. I've looked at my analytics. I can make it a bigger change. It's going to bark at me because it's even bigger this time. And again, I can now submit my salary change. And I made all that with using more input. So that's really helped me make the right decision of what I needed to do by having that input. I'm going to bail out of this. So again, when you're working through the analytics, one of the pieces that you do need to get a better understanding of is the related content. So I'm sure folks are very familiar with the related actions that are available on either the pages or components. But it's this related content, the services that are down here for the analytics. This is the key piece of what drives those analytics. So let me go back to my PowerPoint here. So in working through the analytics, there are a lot of lessons I've learned, and there are some bugs. So one of the bugs that is a little annoying is the My Team Fluid page only allows 2 analytics to display. So if I go back to the My Team under self-service, so when I go to add analytics, you can see there are 2 that I can pick from. But behind the scenes, there are actually multiple. So there is a bug here, and PeopleSoft is working on that bug. But that's one of the pieces that I find a little troublesome. Right now, you're limited to these 2 until the bug is fixed. The other thing I like to advise people of is, again, when you're using queries and they're being shared across the pivot grid and across the analytics, you want to be very careful when you are editing and changing those queries. So you want to be mindful that that query could be used in multiple places, and you don't want to, be messing up people's analytics that they may have built. Adding fields is usually not a problem. Tweaking criteria is usually somewhat safe. It's more around if you are changing the structure of tables and greatly changing the fields that may have already existed. You're gonna probably cause problems for people. So my advice is that as you're working on your analytics, make sure that your queries and pivot grids are well defined, have everything you need in them before you start publishing them, because you could be causing problems for the managers using their analytics. One of the other pieces that's a little annoying is as you're working through your related content, and if you're configuring related actions, related content can be migrated. There are a couple steps you need to go through it, but what can't be migrated right now are related actions. So if you are building pivot grids and those reports and you have actions that go with them, like we saw on the one salary analysis piece, the related actions, you have to recreate them in each environment. So that can be a challenge, and just making sure that you're tracking all those changes so you can reapply them. The other piece that I like that really isn't talked about much is you can register a My Analytics report component, and then the end users can access them directly from their menu. So let me show you what that looks like. So what I did is out in my favorites, I have what's called My Analytics. And so I registered that page and that component. So the one I had earlier at the beginning of the presentation was the total head count. This one is the movement. So I can come in here and get directly to them. So I can have just another nice little repository of my analytic reports that I can directly get to. So I kind of like that feature. It's another quick way off of creating a component that you can register, and then I put it on my favorites and I can get to my favorite analytics that I've personally built. So these are the ones that I saved. This was my movement one that we did earlier and I changed. And then here's the movement one that I created earlier. So those are both available to me. So there's some other resources. There are several good PeopleSoft analytics resources available. So folks can go out and there's a lot of published content about the analytics. Some of them are a deeper dive. So if you're looking for more information or more details, especially around how all the related content can be configured, there are some great YouTube videos out there that give you very detailed descriptions. One of the other documents that I really like in dealing with related content and related actions, it's actually a separate document. It's almost like a red paper, but you can go out and download that off of a support site and get a really good document to help you as you're working through the related actions and related content. And the last piece is around another good demo of analytics. So there are other good resources that are out there if you're looking to investigate, what the options are, or you have a user base that is interested in learning more about the analytics. Again, there are several good resources that are out there. Okay. So with that, I was shooting for about 40 to 45 minutes, and then I was going to open up for questions. So Lisa, I'll turn it back over to you if there's any questions. I know Lisa can open up people's
I can mute anyone. If anyone has any questions, you can either unmute yourself or raise your hand and I can unmute you from here.
Hey, Harry.
Yes.
I had a question. I've seen the analytics also that were very helpful, like during benefits open enrollment. It gave clients a lot more details regarding, how many people have entered elections and are they moving them to a high deductible plan? So, they've used the pivot grids and analytics to see real-time enrollment changes that are happening.
Yeah, there are a lot of other analytics that are delivered out there. These were I was going over the ones that were more around the manager self-service, but yes, there are some other great analytics, both in the HR side of the world, and finance has some awesome analytics that are built into it too. But I know the ones you're talking about with helping with decision making and reviewing the benefits. So I think more analytics is always a good solution.
Do we have more questions?
Yeah, so with these built-in analytics, is it just for people that are you're their manager? Because everything he was looking at looked like it was tied to them being in their organization, rolling up to them. Is there a way to go into those tiles or on the back end to change it to where you can see, anybody that you have query access to within the system?
So so if you looked at some of the analytics I had, I can go back. Let me jump back over. That's a good question. If I can get to the right screen, here we go. So I go back to my home, I go back to my team. So the way most of these are structured is it's through the direct and indirect. So if you are looking at the ones that are delivered, you can see that I have hundreds of rows based on direct and indirect contact. So for people who are direct roll up to me, they'll show as direct, and then their indirect contacts show up. But yes, you could change some of these queries around. These are delivered more again from a manager self-service framework, but you can have queries that are built into pivot grids and used within the analytics. And if you were just opening it wide up, it uses the query security. So since these are all rolling up to the manager who's logged in, they can see all of the direct and indirect. So they are getting multiple rows. So the answer to the question is yes, you could have other queries that would just use the delivered department security if you're looking for broader analysis.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
We do have this webinar recorded, so if anyone wants to